Well, ahoy-hoy, and welcome back once again to On the Bench, where today we're reviewing a watch that's been on my radar for quite some time, that being the Marathon Government Search and Rescue, or GSAR. Before we kick off, if you enjoy the video, I always appreciate your support by liking a video or subscribing to the channel. Those of you who are regular guests will know I usually begin with the watch rebox, but as this is a second-hand purchase and there's more problems than your average modern-day teenager, it didn't come with one and will instead, therefore, dive straight into the watch itself. We're going to talk about the GSAR, its specs, its features, what I like about it, any negatives, and then why I bought this particular example, what's wrong with it, and what we're going to do about that. But first, before the main feature, who exactly are Marathon watches? Marathon are a Canadian company, not American. However, the watches themselves are made at their production facility in Switzerland. They're a very old company with their roots dating back all the way to the 19th century as clockmakers with the Vine family, who emigrated to Canada. And it's still family owned today, which is quite impressive when you think how old this company actually is. But then when your main source of sales is the military, it's not like you have to go public like some other companies have done to fundraise. You've got a ready-made market there when you have a reputation like that of Marathon. In the 1940s, they switched to making military watches, and that has been their business model since, their bread and butter. They are a military watch supplier to various armed forces and services in North America and in other places around the world like the Israeli Defense Force. According to Marathon, up to 90% of their sales today are military contract issue watches, but you can order these online and buy directly from Marathon and a few specialist suppliers. From my experience, the specialist suppliers, particularly in Europe, tend to be suppliers of military watches. You can find them elsewhere, but they're more ordering it on your behalf than actual stockists, which is a shame. It means that in Europe particularly, and in the UK, a Marathon watch is quite an oddity. It's not something you see every day, whereas in the USA, they're much more common to find by the fact they've been issued to services for many, many years. And not finding them particularly often also means you can't generally walk into a dealership and try one on the wrist. It really has to be done on spec, on what you're seeing online and reviews like this. They currently make several different styles and models of watches. There's the Navigator, which has a much increased case side at the side to incorporate a crown guard rather than have separate ones on the side. There's the General Service Field Watch, which is a classically designed field watch. Do have a look at them if you are in the market for one. And then there is this, which is the Government Search and Rescue, the GSAR. There have been a couple of aesthetic changes over the 20 years or thereabouts that the GSAR has been around, particularly mainly with the second hand. We'll go into that a little bit later. But other than that, if the design isn't broken, you generally don't tend to fix it. The GSAR is available in 3 sizes at present. There is the small 36, which is known as the medium GSAR. There's the 41mm, of which this is an example, and there is the jumbo GSAR at 46mm. And the jumbo does have a couple more tricks up its sleeve in the fact that it comes with a day-date complication rather than just the date that you'll find the 41mm, and it also has a chronograph option as well. You may be wondering why the 36 is known as the medium when it's the smallest of the 3 that are available. Well, that comes down to watches. You will often find manufacturers describing men's 36mm watches as medium-sized. Amiga, for instance. If you look at Amiga resale or sale sites, they will describe it as a medium rather than a small. Back in the day, it probably was, but people have got bigger, watches have got bigger, and this is the 41mm. The 41mm retails for approximately 1300 UK on rubber, or just under 16 on metal bracelets. As you can see, this is the rubber version that's on this one. It's available in an automatic. Again, this is an automatic example. It is available for slightly cheaper if you want to go for the quartz version, at about 1,000 on rubber, 1,300 on the bracelet. And after that, let's talk about the specs of this watch. In terms of dimensions, we have a 41mm case. It is 14mm top to bottom, which makes it quite a tall diver. The strap width is 20mm, and we have a lug to lug, top to toe, of approximately 46mm. Looking at the face, we have tritium T25 tubes at every hour marker. The 25 relates to the amount of millicuries that they kick out, the amount of radiation that they give off, because they are radioactive gas tubes. The advantage of this over standard lume is that it does not require an external light source to charge. All other lume, paints, etc. absorb light coming in and then bleed them back out. These kick off their own light source. They have a rating half-life, 12.5 years, so approximately 25 years start to finish. You can expect them to glow for. We have a date complication on this particular model with the date window down there at around about 4:30. And the face is also available in white as an Arctic version if you prefer a white face on this. The hands also feature tritium tubes, apart from the second hand, on this particular model and the older models in general, which have their own proprietary lume on them, which does a very good job. The newer models do also have a tritium lozenge on the end and a red dot tip, whereas this has this very attractive red leaf shape on the end. Above the face, we have a sapphire crystal mounted into a 120-click unidirectional bezel, with aluminium bezel insert and again their proprietary Maraglow up at the top of the 12-hand marker. The case is 316L steel with drilled lugs, which makes changing the straps on these very, very easy. We have a very, very pronounced oversized crown with a diamond grip pattern on it and equally oversized crown guards to keep that safe. Round the back, we don't have a display case. That's understandable. It is an unashamed tool watch. We do have, however, a lot of information along the military spec, the various code numbers that are attributed to the watch, and we also have a made number, which is very nice. As you can see, that this one is made when January 2007. The watch strap is 20mm. This is not an original Marathon strap. The one it came with was a leather number which was absolutely rotting on the watch, so that came off. This is a standard rubber strap, and this is one of those watches that I do think personally does look better on rubber. It's again an unashamed tool watch. It's for doing a job, and I just personally prefer this to a bracelet on this one. It is a slightly odd choice in terms of its size. It is only 20mm, and on a 41mm watch it is a little bit thin. I would expect a 22, but then it allows for these extra thick lugs to really hold it in place. But it does almost look a little bit like that avid weightlifter who for some reason has persistently skipped leg day. However, it is what it is. It does the job perfectly well. And inside the case, what do we have? Well, in the more modern numbers, you have the Marathon M2 movement, which is a modified Sellita SW200. In the older models, such as this one, we are more likely to find the full ETA 2824, which is the same movement near as damn it. The Sellita SW200 is a direct clone of it. It's just the original ETA which was copied off that's in this. The GSAR, as it's known by Marathon, and it is known by some other names by other people. Some people call it a TSAR for Tritium Search and Rescue. There's the JSAR, which can be a relation to the jumbo size one, the 46mm, but as far as Marathon is concerned, is the GSAR, has a lot of points to recommend it. Firstly, there's the looks. I think this is the best looking military diver you can find. It is such a competent looking watch and a competent acting watch. You will know if you've seen my other videos, I have a real affinity for an unapologetic balls out tool watch, and this is the definition of one of those. It's not fancy, it's not new. This is the grizzled veteran at the back of the plane, smiling at the new kids in the squad who are happily playing with their GPS smartwatches. It is absolutely competent at what it does. It can be said it does have somewhat of a busy face, and it does. There's a lot of markings on here. However, It's not as busy as some, and I am a critic of overly busy watches. I personally cannot wear a Breitling. I find them a wrist-mounted migraine to look at, but despite being fairly busy, it is very easy to index this watch, to quickly glance down and see what time it is, because the hands are a distinctly different colour. It makes it easy to use. And if all these markings aren't your thing, if you are ordering new online, you can select to not have the US government issue stamp on there, and other markings you can take them off. And there's other features that you can choose as well, which again makes it an interesting choice. You can have the strap, you can have bracelets, you can have Canadian maple leaf on the bracelet, you can even have a Marines symbol on the front of this thing. There's a lot of options that you can choose, and some of them are no cost, particularly on the face, and that's nice to see. When it comes to wearing it, it's a very, very well balanced watch. And I noticed this in comparison with other tall divers that I own. It's very well behaved. It doesn't try to persistently pitch forward on your wrist when you have your hand down with the weight of the watch. This is probably due to the oversized crown and the oversized crown guards that are here, securing it on your place on the wrist. But whatever the reason, it is very well behaved. Next up, there is the fact that this is tritium. I do search out tritium watches. I prefer it as my lume of choice. I do this because I genuinely need it. I work for the British Emergency Services for my day job, and I don't have the opportunity or the luxury at 3 o'clock in the morning of trying to find a light source to stick my watch up to recharge the lume on it. Therefore, tritium is a very attractive option for people who genuinely are having to spend all night outside in a field or in the field and need to still be able to read what time it is. The T25 tubes that are on here aren't the brightest that you can get. You can get T100 watches in the market if you're interested in what those look like. Please do check out my video for the T100 Nighthawk and see what you think of that one. But they are distinctly larger, and I don't think they would fit on this very well. So T25 will do just fine, and also it's a tactical watch, and you don't necessarily want a Christmas tree on your wrist if you're sneaky beaking out in a field looking for bad guys wearing one of these. Another plus point, I think, is that it wears quite small. It is a discreet 41mm watch. That's because of this lug-to-lug size, top to bottom, of 46mm. Now, if this were a Hamilton, for instance, that'd be 51, 52, even 53 lug-to-lug for a watch of this size. It's very well proportioned, it sits fine, and it doesn't shout from your wrist. It is quietly competent. It's the grey man at the back of the room who you just know knows what they're doing from the look of them. And as I said, the Maraglow I'm very impressed with. This is a 15-year-old watch that is still glowing like a Christmas tree where the painted lume has been applied. Now, are there any negatives? I don't think so, in my opinion. I absolutely love this watch. But there are a couple of bear in minds for you. This is not a desk diver. It's 14mm high. It is not going to sit under a shirt cuff. If you're planning on buying one of these to wear to the office or as a general everyday wear watch, if you wear a shirt with cuffs, I would stay away from this one. It's not going to slip under like an Orient would or a Seiko or another brand that's smaller. And then we come to the movement. As I said, it is available in quartz, and the quartz is £1,000. Now, price is a very, very emotive subject. Everyone has an opinion on it, and I have mine, and I would not advise buying a quartz version of one of these. The movement in it is not worth the sum of its parts. £1,000 for one of these in quartz, it's just too much. It's way too much, in my opinion, which may also be why you don't see that many of these outside of the USA, where they're issued to people and then can turn up on the resale market, because that quartz option just really is, in my opinion, just too expensive. If you do want one of these, and I thoroughly recommend them to you, have a look secondhand or save up a little bit more and go for this, the automatic version. So why did I buy this particular number? Well, I was looking for a secondhand one, and these tend to hold their value very well and do so while not necessarily being in the best condition. So what is the point in me spending $700 or $800 on a watch that then needs a $300, $400 service on top of that? I might as well buy an original, unless I hold out long enough and keep looking for one that is in such bad condition technically that it's going for a very, very cheap price. And then the gods of watch collecting doth smiled upon me, and this cropped up on my feed on a watch collecting site that I use. This was in Turkey of all places. No papers, no history, but a lot of damage, and therefore going for a very, very cheap price. I asked them about the watch. I got some interesting answers back. They had the communications were very good, so I then went to Marathon directly. My nearest service centre for Marathon is Switzerland, because this is going to need to see a Marathon expert, and that's where Marathon are based. I contacted them, asked, can you deal? They said, yes, but we're going to need it in hand. Absolutely. Therefore, I bought it. So what's wrong with it? Well, let's start with what's right. And that's the movement. It is still going fine, as you can see. It is losing a couple of minutes a day, but when was it last serviced? I don't know. I'm going to have to assume never. It could simply be a service required to get that straight, or the watch regulating, or perhaps it's been near a magnet, but it has so many problems. Let's do it all in Switzerland. But the movement is essentially sound. The seals, however, are probably a different matter. The gaskets that are inside this watch that make it waterproof. I have to assume they're in as poor a state as the rest of the watch, which will mean that this is not waterproof at the moment. Therefore, I've been very careful over the time I've been wearing it and testing it not to get it anywhere near water. The face, the tritium has almost all died, and in fact several of the tubes, you can see the 7, 9, 10, that brown colour, they've failed, they've blown. Which is interesting considering the marketed shelf life of tritium is 25 years, but this is gone, it's dead. So at the moment it's next to useless in low light, which is no good for me apart from the Maraglow parts. The second hand and the 12 index at the top are glowing just fine. The crystal, if we can try and catch it on here, is chipped in several places. The aluminium bezel insert is rubbed, it's damaged, it's cracked in a place as well. Then we have the bezel. This is the one query with this. It has several repetitive knocks on here, which make me think that this probably was a service-issued watch. If you're carrying something heavy metal that goes bang, and you're having to hold the barrel in your right hand, this is going to be about where it connects with, and this is something heavy metal that's again and again been knocked on the top of this. And this bezel does not want to move. It will, but it doesn't like it. Why? Don't know. How are we going to find out? Taking it apart. It could just be that it's gummed up inside with sand and oil and skin and various other things which are jamming it and stopping it rotating properly. It could be damage. Is it damage to the inside of the bezel? Is it damage to the case housing? Is it damage to both? That's the risk, that's the gamble with this one that I bought, and we'll see once it's taken apart. So what are we having done on my behalf by Marathon in Switzerland? Well, we are going to have a full service of the movement. It's going to be pulled apart, cleaned, put back together, regulated, dropped back in the watch, all new gaskets and seals all the way around, and then pressure tested up to 300 meters, which is the rating for the watch. We're going to try, if possible, to re-gas tube this face and keep the original face. If it's not possible, it's going to need to have a new face. Hands, same. I do want to try and keep these hands because they are different on this older model. I do prefer them. Hopefully we'll be able to get these tubes mended, but as you can see, even on this one, the end tube has shattered, it's gone. We're going to have a new crystal on the top. We're going to have this bezel insert either repainted and repaired, or a new aluminium bezel insert put in there. This large damage, not really anything to be done about that, but that's fine. It's character, it's part of the watch, it's part of its story. It's not my story, but I'm perfectly happy having that there. It's a talking point, and it's a reminder that this saw some serious adventures, most likely, on somebody else's wrist as a service watch in the US Armed Forces. Finally, it's going to have an all-over clean and polish to get rid of all the micro scratches and the medium-sized dents that are in here. We'll get all those out as much as we can, and hopefully this will then be coming back from Switzerland as good as new. And that's exactly where this is going. As soon as this video is finished, this bad boy is straight off to the dispatch office, over to Switzerland, and we will then have a part 2 video sometime in the future when it returns to me, and I'll be able to show you exactly what they've managed to do and how it's running and how it's looking once it's all fixed up. So what do I think about the Marathon GSAR? As I said, I love it. I really do enjoy this watch. I wear it a lot. It's the perfect, competent beta watch. Is it an one watch collection? No, I don't think so. It doesn't quite wear for all occasions, but in general day-to-day wear, it's an absolutely fantastic watch, and hopefully we'll be able to rescue this one from a one-way street to the scrap heap, which it's on at the moment, with all the tritium failing, with the movement starting to not work properly. It's getting towards a stage where it wouldn't be worth somebody's time to fix, and it might be just left or put in a drawer and never to be seen again. And I'm really looking forward to rescuing this one. If you are looking for a hard as nails military diver, I'd absolutely recommend them. Take a look at them. Does it have any alternatives? It does, and particularly if you are in the USA, where these are quite common, perhaps look at something like the Zinn EZM3, which can be had on used markets. Have a look at those. They also have a feature on those, which is an anti-fog system, which this doesn't have. Do you really need it? Probably not, but if you look at something slightly different within that mil-spec diver range, do have a look at the Zinn as well. It might be something that tickles your fancy. And there we have the Marathon GSAR. I, as ever, have been your host, Jim. If you've enjoyed the video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It really does help the channel. I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time at the most with another review. We are looking as well to go weekly with the show, so please stay tuned for that, with interspaced watch reviews, with news, commentary, and other things that are going in the watch world. But up until that time, do take care.